What's up, everybody? Andor's aired its final 3 episodes, and so it's time for my final breakdown for the show. We made our final time jump to the year of Rogue One and approach year 0 in the galaxy far, far away. Clea and Luthen have used up all of their luck on Coruscant here, as he says they've used up all of their perfect, and that's because Dedra has been back on Axis for a year now, but it's unsanctioned by the ISB. That's not the worst of it though, as their spy is the one who has them on edge right now, and that's because he burned himself getting the most important information he's ever gotten for Luthen, Jedha, Kyber, Scarif. In other words, the plot of Rogue One and A New Hope, and then boom, Luthen takes him out. But he's too late to clean up duty because Dedra already found him and she walks right into the shop full of that Imperial cockiness. Why? She's got the Starpath unit from Ferrix all the way back in the very first arc in Season 1. But I absolutely loved one of his final lines. There's a whole galaxy out there waiting to disgust you. As even though, Luthen himself, he can't swallow his pride to join the Greater Rebellion, but he's very proud of what it's become. However, and in my finale predictions, I actually speculated that Clea might do this if they had the cojones to put it in the show, and it turns out they did, as Luthen tries taking his own life to avoid Imperial interrogation. Now, I say if they had the balls to do it, but we don't see anything really here. He cuts his stomach, which is odd to me, but it does kind of call back to him calling himself a coward in Season 1, like he wants to eliminate the threat of him exposing parts of the rebellion, but he's too much of a coward to actually cut his throat. Regardless, we did finally get his backstory that Tony Gilroy had been teasing for some time, and it was amazing. Before he was Luthen Rail, he was Sergeant Lair, and he found a young Clea while he was on a mission. He saved her, hid her, and the duo quickly started selling their antiques to get by and keep moving. He also started molding his little rebel, though, as he left her on her own to watch an execution and blew up an Imperial transport right in front of her. Then back in the present, Clea makes her way into the Coruscant hospital where ISB is keeping Luthen and gets her big moment in the worst way possible, kind of like Dedra, who got arrested, but more importantly, Clea sets off her diversion with the explosions and then silences the man who would become her father. For me, episode 10 from season 2 right here is going to go down as the best episode of the entire series, all 24 episodes. Stellan Skarsgård and Elizabeth DeLue, I hope I pronounced that one right, were simply phenomenal, and the same goes for the younger Clea actress, April V. Woods. She was great too. This episode, it just ripped my heart out. But we've still got 2 more to go, as episode 11 picks up immediately with the ISB shutting the hospital down with the Imperial power trip on full display, which, that's funny to me because of what immediately follows. Dedra, a year after losing Serial on Gorman, sitting in the same room that she interrogated him in, and that birthed her access obsession, and now it's Krennic in her shoes, obsessing over the Death Star leaks, and oh my god, Ben Mendelsohn is hilarious, but in the most terrifying way during this scene. But Krennic is absolutely in the right to be concerned because Clea escaped and she's scrambling to contact Cassian from the Coruscant safe house. What I loved about this is, once again, the arrogance of the Empire, as they're so fat and satisfied, they think it was a 3-man team that hit the hospital, only to realize it was 1, Clea, and then they're gonna find 3 at the apartment, but not yet. Melshi, Cass, and K2, they gotta finish playing space dominoes on Yavin. All jokes aside though, they quickly make their way to Coruscant once Wilmot catches them up on everything, and when they arrive, K2 mentioned being in a parade there once, and I'd have to imagine that he was in one of the Empire Day parades, which to me feels like the only time I can think of the Empire has parades at all. Regardless, they're able to get to Clea before the ISB does, but not long after, the ISB is going to be at the door too. K2 does his thing, disobeying Cassian's orders and leaving the ship when he should have stayed on it, as he clears the path in the most violent and also the funniest way possible. He's a menace. But this was another banger episode, as things go kind of how I thought they would in these first 2 episodes. Cassian, he's running around for the rebellion on Coruscant, learning about the Death Star, and it's like I said, the Empire is stupid. They've got their boot on the entire galaxy's throat, yet the puny little rebellion is still able to remain at least a step ahead. It's beautiful. With that being said, it's time to get into the final episode of Andor, ever. The ISB found our rebels in the safe house, and Melshi just walking out to them was kind of hilarious. K2 is just as funny though as he continues to be when he comes to the rescue, as he dangles that ISB guy like a rag doll, while Cass and Clea act like I guess Melshi too, all three of them act like they can just eat a grenade that they definitely did not know was a stun grenade. But they escape and return to Yavin 4, where Bail Organa has joined the other rebel leaders. He and Mon, they're trying to corral Saw Gerrera as he drops that cold line to Mon: "If only you could fight as well as you lie." Mon Mothma was, and always will be to me, a great politician, but she's not the best rebel because she's a great politician and can't do the dirty work. That's just my opinion though, and everybody, at the same time, it's like everybody has to serve their purpose. Not everybody can be a Luthen because it's too high risk. You need some people to kind of, not necessarily work behind the scenes, but work from the shadows. Anyway, we got the return of Admiral Radis in this episode too, which I love because the Mon Calamari might just be my favorite aliens from George's world. Well, actually, there is another, as Yoda would say. The Twi'leks, they do have a certain appeal to them, but in all seriousness, a little detail I noticed here on Yavin was that Wilmon is still walking with a limp after the Gorman massacre, so he never fully healed. But going back to Mon being a great politician, she acts as a voice of reason when Cassian brings the Death Star rumors to the council. Now, she was absolutely terrified of Luthen at the end of the day, but for the same reasons, she knows firsthand that he is legit, and so she doesn't really have a choice but to believe him here, and I think it was less of her not believing him, but more she didn't want to believe. Also, it was hilarious watching Bale realize that Luthen had moles watching him too. He and Clea were truly everywhere. Just like Nemec's speech from way back in season 1, as it's played over a scene of Clea getting up out of the medbay, and I assume she was trying to leave Yavin 4 here, but it's actually playing at the ISB headquarters, as it's the last thing Partagaz ever does before taking his own life, as the show did it twice when I didn't even know if they had the balls to do it once. Then Vel goes to Andor to check his story for Mon and ultimately tells him to go find Bix, that he shouldn't wait too long because she and Cinta did. Well, she doesn't actually say that, but she knows the pain that Bix will come to feel. But Andor, he thinks he's got time, he thinks he's gonna get to live to see the sunrise that he's building, and well, Rogue One. But the show did remember, and this might just be the most shocking thing ever from season 2, the show actually remembered his sister for a millisecond, so I guess, we're just meant to assume she's dead. I don't even know. I know Gilroy was like, oh, I don't want to fill that hole, but it almost didn't even feel worth mentioning here because of how little the show cared about her for 22 of the 24 episodes. Finally, we've got the final montage that featured Melshi as an instructor on Yavin, Will chilling with his girl on Yavin, Mon's ex-husband Perrin on Coruscant with a Hoor, Dedra locked up on Narkina 5, I loved that part, Clea, she gets to see Luthen's sacrifice pay off with the slightest of smiles, Cassian, he acknowledges the Force healer as he goes off to be the messenger that she said he would be, Saw, he's on Jeddah despite telling Mon Mothma, she's like, we know you're on Jeddah, Saw, and he's like, I could be anywhere in the galaxy. But back to the episode, Krennic is on his destroyer, gazing at his achievement, and of course, I should have seen this coming, Bix is back on that farm planet with B2 and Andor's kid. Now, I did think that was actually the weakest of the 3 episodes we got in the finale, but it was still a good episode. However, I had 2 major problems. One, I still hate the Bail Organa recast. Jimmy Smits is my GOAT, and I just never bought in to the new actor. And 2, I'm not the biggest fan of Bix and Andor having a kid. Not because I want Bix to be miserable, no, because I smelled the spin-off coming from Lucasfilm, and I don't want anything to do with it, but overall, just an incredible finale. And so that's going to do it for my final Andor breakdown, as the show finished with 6 strong episodes, in my opinion. But I want to know what you guys thought about the finale, so drop your thoughts down in the comments below and make sure you have a great day.